Yes, so my name is Tony. I'm going to do a presentation on supply chain security for Flutter and that projects on Github. Yeah, so a bit of myself. I'm a Flutter developer and also a coding instructor at Polytechnicals, which is a CBO that sort of empowers women through STEM skills. Yeah? Where we teach people how to code, tracks ni tofauti. Kuna website development. We also do mobile app development with Flutter. We have collaborated with Google to teach people Flutter. Also, we teach digital marketing, how to market yourself online as a business or as an individual. Then there's also 3D printing we do. Yeah, so within the Flutter community, we also have Flutteristas, which is a group that we started some time last year for teaching people Flutter, specifically ladies, but also guys we are invited to come. Yeah, so to start us off, we're going to talk about what supply chain is basically, and the whole security aspect of it before we dive in to looking at it in Flutter with Github. Yeah, so in the from just a general perspective, supply chain in any industry basically is just the whole process that something has been created from the source to the end user. Yeah, so all industries have their own supply chain. Yeah, hata kama retail, whatever industry you think of, unakwanga na a supply chain. Yeah, so for software development, basically is from where you write your code to you deploy that code, then distributing that code, then when your end user uses your product, yeah, whether it's an app or is it a web app, yeah, whatever that you deploy finally, yeah. So there are so many points in that chain that can be vulnerable to attacks. So we're going to explore some of those vulnerabilities later. Yeah. So why does it matter? Why does it matter to implement security in every chain in your development process as a developer? So number one is integrity. Yeah. So if you make public how you secure your software in the development cycle at each stage, each iteration, your end user, it sort of gives trust. Someone is able to yeah, these people are trustworthy. We can actually use their products. Yeah, so security enhances that integrity. So everyone is in the industry can trust your product that it's good to work with. Yeah? Then there's also the issue of IP. Yeah, so we know that there's a lot of cracked versions of many apps out here. For example, something like Spotify. Most people run Spotify app cracked. Also many others, especially in the Windows ecosystem. Yeah, so with the implementing supply chain security, you are able to protect that, especially for your builds, whenever you deploy them to the world. So you are able to validate your software to ensure that you're the one who actually owns it. Then the other thing is availability guarantee. Yeah, so what does that mean? Yeah, so if you have your security in each stage, it ensures that every time, for example, you release a new a version, a new update for your app, it will always be available for your end users. Yeah, so it's sort of the whole supply chain, putting security and everything. It enables every time a new build, anything that happens, someone is able to secure it really well. Yeah? Then the other thing is user trust. Yeah, so user trust and integrity insurance sort of work hand in hand together, whereby if you're able to secure everything, your user is able to trust your product. Yeah, so let's just do an overview of Dart and Flutter. What is it exactly? It may be familiar to some of you, it may not be familiar to some of you. Yeah, so that is a programming language for building things on the web, mobile, and server applications. Yeah, so then we have now the framework. So with the that you write that code inside a open source framework known as Flutter, developed by Google. Then you're able to like deploy your apps in the various ecosystems, iOS, web, even on Android. Yeah, so that's like what it does basically. Yeah, so if you want to get into this, you just go to data.dev, you go to flutter.dev, you get all the SDKs over there, then you can start like installing, for instance, like doing mobile app development. Yeah, if you have any issues, you can always like reach out to me, you can like solve them. Yeah, so why does supply chain security really matter in in that and like the Flutter ecosystem? Yes, so the first thing is the reason that Flutter and Dart are open source projects. So like there's like a lot of people all over the world building and contributing to like build on these frameworks on the open source repositories. Yeah, so this is very very important for everyone to like be concerned with the security of Flutter because those code bases are public, like for everyone. Yeah, so it's very very important to like think about security because you're dealing with like maintainers, the people who own it, and like the contributors. Then the other thing is the rapid development cycles for Flutter when like someone is sort of releasing an app or a new feature in that open source project. Yeah, so like with open source projects, we know that like there are many people contributing. So every time is always a release, maybe to fix some vulnerabilities. So it's very very important to consider putting security in that whole process. Then the other thing is widespread adoption. Yeah, like if you look at like industry statistics, a lot of people are like moving to Flutter because of its cross-platform nature, whereby you just have one code base, put it in all those ecosystem, and it's also like fast to like build apps on it, secure. Yeah, so it has like a lot of advantages that is making people like move to Flutter. So the fact that a lot of businesses are using Flutter in their products, that means it's attractive for malicious people to like sort of introduce maybe things such as uh, code to like interfere with your Flutter app. Yeah, so it's also good for like also like for 0 days. Yeah, you know that 0 days like exists out here. So it's like really really good to think about putting security in Flutter and that SDKs. Yeah, so let's talk about some of the threats that are involved in a supply chain. Yeah, in most like common like build processes for most development, yeah, you have like something that looks like this, whereby you have like your source where you write your repository, where you're going to like build it, then you put it in a package, then like the final user uses that package. Yeah, so most development cycles are normally like this, like at the backbone. It's normally how you have something like this. Yeah, so from one point to another, there's always a threat in this supply chain. Yeah, so like for example, like from the developer to like the source code. For example, you have a source code maybe on GitHub or all those version control systems that you might know, like GitLab. So someone might like submit some bad code to the repository. So it introduces vulnerability onto that supply chain. Yeah, so maybe this person maybe doesn't have those like administrator privileges. So someone's able to like introduce code, bad malicious code at the source. Yeah, then from the source to like where you know you are going to like build it, there might be uh, processes in between the CI/CD. Someone can still introduce bad code over there and interfere with that. Then we use a lot of dependencies in building our apps and our web apps and all that. So these third-party dependencies, someone might have a corrupted dependency, thus making your build be vulnerable to maybe attacks or whatever. Then the build platform itself, most of these build platforms are also like open source repositories, so they might also pose as threats as them as having like build, so it can be compromised. Then almost the same thing also the package to the final user. So the final user might also get a package that is not right. Yeah, good example is like the versions, the cracked apps. So your end user might get a cracked version maybe of whatever app they're using, then vulnerability gets introduced. Yeah, so it's very, very important to like mitigate these threats. So we're going to look at how Flutter does that. Yeah, so the current landscape in data and Flutter, how they sort of uh, secure every stage of supply chain. The first way is through provenance. So this is what like the team at Google like does currently. Yeah. So they protect their builds through provenance. Yeah. So what is provenance? So provenance basically is putting all the information that you've used to like build your software that you're creating. Yeah, it's normally like a JSON file, whereby you say the packages that you've used, the machine that has been used. Yeah, so if like the Flutter SDK at Google, they have provenance for a Flutter SDK. So they can from that JSON file, you can actually know this Flutter SDK, the machine that built this SDK, the packages that were used, the timestamps when it started and when it ended. Yeah. So that's information that can be really verified through your provenance architecture. Yeah. Then Google also has this security framework known as SALSA that they use to ensure their SDKs and the Flutter packages are compliant in the supply chain security. Yeah, so in full, it's supply chain levels for software artifacts. Yeah, so the main idea around this framework, so it's an industry standard that was created by like Google and like other companies in the ecosystem. Yeah, so with the this standard, it's one is able to like you build whatever you're building, then you ensure it meets the standards of this framework. Yeah. So if we like go deeper into this framework, we realize there are four levels of security. There's like level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. So level 4 being the highest level of security for your apps. Yeah. So you'll realize that, for example, in level 1, they say you provide like all the information for your like your builds and packages and all that at the smallest level. Yeah. So you have to like put all that information in a provenance for level 1 level of security. Yeah. Then with level 2, they say you also have to like publish your open source like your source control for building your builds. Yeah. So you have to like ensure that that is also compliant. Then you have level 3. So level 3, your builds and your source control, they have to be sort of verified. They can be authenticated. That's such that if someone comes and like audits your provenance, they're able to like see, like to track from like the build stage to like the final end user product. Yeah. Then level 4 is like the highest level of security, whereby like people can actually look at the software, is able to like anyone can like trace, and no one can like change anything in your software without like having another person approving that change. Yeah. So like there are four levels. Yeah. So if you like go to that site, like you learn more about how Google uses this for their apps. Yeah. So uh, focus areas in Dart and Flutter, it's mainly two areas with like that ecosystem. Yeah. So number one is the Dart and SDK software. They are normally created and like are compliant with that salsa framework that I've like mentioned. Yeah, so you realize that SDK like with their engines, you realize like with like that SDK, Flutter SDK, they sort of are compliant like up to like maybe like level 2 of the salsa framework. And then maybe the Flutter engine and like the final whatever product someone's going to use like to build on Flutter is for Flutter maybe at level 4. Yeah, then another way of like securing this supply chain for that and Flutter is having tooling that improves the Flutter ecosystem and like everyone who's using Flutter. Yeah, so other than just the SDKs, there are also things known as packages in Flutter that third-party people can use to build packages that do specific things on Flutter. So these are like the dependencies. Yeah, so Google has a way of finding ways to like secure that for the supply chain so that no one can just easily inject any package into like the pub.dev repository for that is malicious. Yeah, so they have like tooling to like mitigate that. We're going to like look at that. Yeah, so for GitHub now, specifically for GitHub, one way they implement that is through something known as security advisories. And so on GitHub, if you like browse your GitHub, you realize there's something known as GitHub advisory database. And so this database is like an open source database that people like sort of like report and are able to like uh, catch and fix vulnerabilities before like the public is like made aware of. Right? So there's like every framework that you can think of. If you look at that database, there's like already predefined like tracks. If maybe you're building on that pub, whatever, you'll see every person who's contributing to like maybe report a vulnerability to like fix it. Right? So with the Google collaborated with like GitHub, so they put that over there and it's supported. So like that package managers are able to like collaborate with other reporters to fix those vulnerabilities before privately before announcing them publicly. Yeah, so if you are a Dutch developer, maybe you are creating your own package to do maybe something. If it's like maybe you're deciding to come up with a package, maybe for like payment with like Impressor. Yeah, so you can like add this to your repository so that you're able to like have a security advisory so that you can like allow others to like come and like look at whatever package that you're building, see if the vulnerabilities, report it, just discuss within yourselves before putting it in public. Yeah. Then there's also like a CVE. If you don't find a vulnerability that is already listed, you can put it on that database. Yeah. Then also something else, you can also have your own security advisory for your own GitHub repository. Yeah, so every time you create a repository, you can have a security advisory for it, whereby uh, people in the contributing to that repository can sort of find vulnerabilities and mitigate them. Yeah, then so just a screenshot of how that GitHub advisory database looks like. So you as you can see, there's like reviews, like reviewed, there's like composer, ELA, GitHub actions. And so like on the left, these are all the reviews advisories that already exist on that open source database. So you'll see if you select like for the pub is one for the Dart, you'll see all vulnerabilities that are associated with the pub package. Then people are like collaborating to like fix them. Yeah. Then the other thing is dependency graph. So if you are a person who creates projects and put them on GitHub, you know that there's a tab for dependency graph under insights. It's under like the insights tab. Yeah. So with this graph, sort of lists all the dependencies that you have used in your projects and like the versions. Yeah. So for specifically for that, there's normally a pubspec.yaml file that's the one that lists all the repositories that you've used in a Flutter app. Then after that, it generates a graph. Then from that graph, something known as dependable. I know most of you like are familiar with it. It finds a compromise, something compromised in a repository. Maybe you've exposed the AKs. It sends a pull request. Then we're able to like accept that PR. Then we're able to like allow it to solve whatever vulnerabilities that you have. So like that sort of forms the basis for dependency board. So the dependency graph looks something like this. So you have your repository, your code frequency, then you are able to look at all the dependencies that you use in your Flutter project. Yeah, so from the dependency graph is where we get now the dependables. So the dependables looks at the dependency graph, sees vulnerabilities, then it sends a pull request to you as the owner of that repository. Then you are able, it can automatically update your packages. For example, using updated packages. Yeah. So a good example of this is here, whereby if you can like analyze this repository, you notice the dependable. There's like a repository known as Pana. So it has checked in the pubspec.yaml. It has noticed that that analyzer, like the previous version was 4.7, now it's 5.0. So it's sending a pull request, wants to like update it for you. Then you're able to like update that automatically for your dependencies in Flutter and your that packages. So that will like bring me the end of this session. Yeah, it was very brief because in that and Flutter, GitHub already they collaborated to like create for coders who build on Flutter and that SDKs security for that. So you don't have to like, do a lot. You just go to your GitHub repository, ensure you have your dependables enabled. You have on GitHub on your GitHub repository, ensure you're on a security advisory if you're like building in public using a Dart package. Yeah, so that's it. In case anyone has questions, can ask. Yeah, you can also connect on Twitter, GitHub, and LinkedIn.